Joining us here on the Heister Automotive Group hotline, it's the general manager of the Carolina Hurricanes, Eric Tulsky. Eric, first of all, thank you so much for joining us here on the show this afternoon. By the way, feel free to break any news maybe regarding Nikolai Ehlers if you want to. Feel free to go ahead and do that right now if you want to, Eric.
If I had any news, I'd be happy to share it.
That's totally fair. I know yesterday, Eric, you spoke yesterday about you guys being in on Nikolai Ehlers, and you guys had pitched him. Is it just basically just kind of waiting to see what Ehlers is deciding, just basically waiting on his decision?
Yep, that's where we are right now.
All right, that's fair. I think a lot of teams around the NHL are probably anticipating that right now. Again, that's Canes general manager Eric Tulsky joining us here on the Heister Automotive Group hotline. Let's go into the big move he made yesterday regarding K'Andre Miller. What is it about Miller's skill set that makes him a great fit, not only for Carolina, but also will fully unlock his potential?
Yeah, I mean, he's a really powerful, explosive skater. And the way we ask our defensemen to defend, we want them to apply pressure all the time and get into guys. And he has the explosiveness to close out. And he's big and physical and can apply real pressure when he does that and make it hard on people.
So I remember last week on Friday after the first round of the draft, you talked about how a lot of teams in the NHL weren't looking to make trades for futures, and most teams were looking to, if they were trading players, they would get players in return. When did you identify that K'Andre could be a player that you could acquire without having to give up really anybody on your full-time roster?
Yeah, we had talked to the Rangers about it for a couple of weeks. You know, they were definitely looking at the free agent market and wondering if there was somebody out there who they might want to bring in, and then they would need to move some people to clear space to be able to do that.
Eric, I asked you last week on Friday after the first round of the draft about how the new collective bargaining agreement, when it starts next year, will impact the maximum length of contracts, and if that would impact any decisions made by free agents or potentially players that you go after with, you know, current players you can only sign to 8 years is going to go down to 7, and then free agents will go from 7-year terms down to 6-year terms, and how much that impact that could possibly have. How much did that weigh in on making sure when you traded for K'Andre Miller that you got that 8th year as part of the sign and trade? How valuable was that to you all?
Yeah, I mean, it's important, right? The cap's going up a lot, and that 8th year, the cap will be very high, and he will still be in his prime, you know, maybe at the tail end of his prime, but he should still be very effective. Obviously, you're taking some risk when you sign someone that long. There's a lot of things that can go poorly. But if it goes well, I think we'll be in really good shape, and glad we got that extra year at this price.
Eric Tulsky, Carolina Hurricanes general manager, joining us here on the Heister Automotive Group hotline. I know there's a lot of questions and speculation about, well, who's going to play on their offside? You have 4 left-handed defensemen. You have 2 right-handed defensemen. Who are you guys looking at possibly playing on their right side?
Yeah, I mean, it could be any of them. So the coaches will feel out how they want to do. I know Gostis Bear's done it a lot. I know Slavin's done it a little. I believe any of them can do it. It's just a matter of where they see the best fit and how they want to set things up.
Eric, I know you've written in the past about how important it is for NHL teams to carry the puck into the zone as opposed to just an old dump and chase style of method. How does K'Andre's skill set add to that, even from the blue line, where he can bring the puck up the ice and help enter zones without, you know, just like I said, chipping the puck into the corner?
Yeah, he's very effective at skating with the puck. He has powerful stride and good control of it, and he can create space for himself and get himself up the ice with the puck. You know, we also, the way we play, we actually do play a fair amount of dump and chase because we want to play fast. And so a lot of the time the goal is just get the puck into their end as fast as we can and get after them and get on them. And, you know, sometimes the fastest way to get on the attack is to dump it in and get after it.
I know, Eric, when you traded for Mikko Rantanen, I'm sorry, not for Mikko Rantanen, but when Alexander Nikishin was coming over here from Russia, you tweeted out a little emoji of an airplane. So we expect like just a simple emoji tweet from you at some point here in the next day or two. I was hoping that we might get that yesterday with K'Andre Miller.
Yeah, I don't know. We got to keep it mixing up. I don't want you to know what's coming next time, so we'll see how I handle it.
Always keeping us guessing. Eric Tulsky, Canes general manager, joining us here on the Heister Automotive Group hotline. Speaking of a player, 8-year contract, Logan Stankoven, a player that you got a deal done that you announced yesterday. 8 years, $6 million a year. What is it about not just the skill set that Logan Stankoven brings, but also just the mentality that fits so well into the Canes culture that you identified him as being a core guy for really the next 9 seasons?
Yeah, I mean, again, the way we want to play, we want to put pressure on people and we want to be really competitive and get into them and make it hard for them. He's not the biggest guy, but he is extremely competitive and he fights for every inch and he makes you work for it.
What do you anticipate as a ceiling possibly for Logan Stankoven? Do you look at him and you say he's 22 years old? By the time he reaches his age 25 season, we expect him to be a consistent 50-point scorer or 25-goal guy. Where do you see as his potential ceiling is with this team?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say, right? So far, I think he's beaten every expectation that's ever been put on him, so it's hard to put a ceiling on someone like that. We'll just have to watch him keep growing and see how far he gets.
Eric, I know going into this offseason, you all had a lot of flexibility in terms of what you can do with cap space, draft capital, a deep prospect pool, and you obviously dipped into that yesterday. But you still have that flexibility where you can still make moves, whether it's this offseason or even during the season. How set up are you guys for not only making moves right now, but even during the season, if you have a major injury, you got to make a move or you got to make a change, that you are set up to still make these moves and don't really have to stress about, are we going to be pressed against the cap or maybe we're too low on picks or prospects? How valuable is that flexibility for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's really nice to be in a position where we're never going to lose out on something because we just couldn't afford it. Right? We have all the money we want. We have all the assets we could need. It's just a question of making sure we find the right fit and finding the players who want to be here and getting after them and getting them in here. Most of the time, the salary cap places limitations on teams. And right now, I'm just fortunate to be in a spot where it's not really limiting. It's just a question of where we can find opportunity to bring players in who can help us.
And an area where you have flexibility, I guess you can say, is even going into next year. I always think about, future moves that this team could make. Pretty much your entire roster, with the exception of Mark Jankowski and Frederick Anderson, you have either under contract or under control as a restricted free agent next season. For you to have that kind of continuity from one year to the next, how much do you expect this team to grow, not only as a unit, obviously individual players getting better, but just the growth potential of this team going forward because of that cohesion?
Yeah, it's a really good point. It's something we really haven't had in a long time here. I think we always try to be one of the most active teams in the league, and we don't want to miss any chances to make our team better. And so we have had a lot of turnover over the years because of that. I think this is probably the first time we've had this many of our players sort of in place and settled this far in advance.
All right, final thing for you, Eric Tulsky joining us here on the Heister Automotive Group hotline. Final thing for you, I know, again, Logan Stankoven signed that 8-year contract extension. You do have a couple guys in their final year of their entry-level contracts, and Jackson Blake as well as Alexander Nikishin. Have the conversations been taking place with their agents and about potential deals and contract extensions for those guys as well?
Yep, we've had an initial conversation with each of them. I don't know yet where any of them are going to end up, but we would love to do them early if we could.
All right, Eric, thanks so much for your time. I know you got to get back to work. It's a busy time for you, and we'll be looking for that the Nikolai Ehlers extension announcement coming up here soon. By the way, feel free. You still have a few minutes if you want to break that news. You're more than welcome to right now, Eric.
If I had news for you, I would share it.
I know you would. Appreciate it, Eric. Thanks so much for your time, and congratulations on making the deal so far, and continued luck this offseason.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, that's Eric Tulsky, Carolina Hurricanes general manager, joining us here on the Heister Automotive Group hotline. Max, I don't know why I'm getting the gut feeling of that we're going to hear a Nikolai Ehlers, signing here in the next 10 minutes.
Well, I feel like
he's holding it right up the sleeve.
He was a little concise. I think maybe he was trying to get off the phone so he can go finish that up.
He might be. Maybe he had a text going through. Maybe he had something, a text or a call or something going through. Eric really is a legit great guy. And I always enjoy talking to him for sure. But that's the biggest thing out there. And about the continuity. And there's a purpose why I asked him about the cohesiveness as well as the continuity from one year to the next for this roster is that everyone on this team, so with the exception again, Mark Jankowski and Frederick Anderson, the guys that are going to be regular NHL players for this team this upcoming season. Mark Jankowski and Frederick Anderson are the only two guys that aren't under control by the Carolina Hurricanes next year, whether being under contract or the Canes have that player's rights. So Jackson Blake, Alexander Nikishin, they're in the final years of their entry-level contracts. They're restricted free agents next year. So the Carolina Hurricanes still have that cost control. But everyone else is, most of these guys are under contract at least 2 years, if not even longer. The guys that are really only under contract for the next 2 years are Jordan Martinook, Jordan Staal, Shane Gostisbehere, and Jalen Chatfield. Those guys are all with 2 years left on their deal. Everyone else is like 3-4 years or longer. Like Sebastian Aho signed till 2032. Svechnikov has signed through the 29 season. Seth Jarvis is signed through 2032. Kokiniemi through 2030. Taylor Hall signed for the next 3 years. William Carrier, 5 more years. Eric Robinson, 4 more years. Stankoven, after this year, has 8 more, so he's 9 years.
8 more for Jacob Slavin, too.
8, yeah, exactly. His extension actually kicks in this year. So you have 8 years of Jacob Slavin, 8 years of Keandre Miller, 4 more years of Sean Walker. You have a couple years left on the contract for Pyotr Kochetkov. There's so much cohesion on this team and just continuity, but even with all those guys that I mentioned, they're still under contract. They still have $18.2 million of cap space right now, which they could easily free up about $775,000 of that. They did re-sign Tyson Jost to a 2-way contract. You can send him down to the American Hockey League without a problem. And that allows you to have an extra guy floating around. And there's still young prospects that they potentially want to bring up, but is there a spot for Bradley Nadeau to actually come up and make this team? That's actually a question to think about as well, is that you do have some really good young prospects on your team, but then you also look at, for a guy like Bradley Nadeau, is that all these guys I just mentioned that are under contract for the next couple years, where's there a spot for Bradley Nadeau? I think that was also one of the reasons that made Scott Morrow expendable for the Keandre Miller deal, which we'll dive here into that in just a little bit, but where do these guys actually fit in? Then again, even after 2 years when Jordan Staal and Jordan Martinook, their contracts are up, okay, there's still not a lot of spots that need to be filled.
It's a very cohesive unit, but you do have to kind of strike the balance between keeping what has been successful, but also realizing they do have to change a few things just to be able to get over that ultimate hump. Because obviously the team works so well together, and they've bought into the culture, and it's a great locker room, and they've had a lot of success. But again, to get to that next level, there does need to be some level of change as well. So I think Tulsky's going to do a good job of kind of striking that perfect balance between keeping the right pieces together, but also bringing in that extra hired gun to help finish things off and finish the job and get to that ultimate goal that they've been trying to get to.
They're right there on the cusp. Look, you don't make the conference final 2 out of the last 3 years on accident. You just don't. And like he said, they've been one of the more active teams in the league in terms of trying to find guys and add different pieces. And they've gotten close, but maybe it's the consistency from one year to the next, because you shouldn't miss a beat. Hopefully, if anything, especially the younger guys that you have on your roster, you anticipate Seth Jarvis to still take a step. You anticipate Jackson Blake to take a step. Not saying Jackson Blake's going to be a 35-goal guy. Unless he's going to do it, and ain't going to complain about that. But Stankoven, you expect to elevate and take a step. Keandre Miller's 25 years old. He's still growing in terms of his development as a player. Keandre Miller even mentioned today that he likes to watch Jacob Slavin play and actually learn, and is trying to learn as much as he can and emulate as much as the way that Jacob Slavin plays the game. Now, Jacob Slavin, in terms of his ability, or I guess his level of play, didn't happen overnight. It definitely took some work. But if Keandre Miller can, being around Jacob Slavin just through osmosis, continue to develop and evolve his game, then you anticipate him growing as well. Even Sebastian Aho still has another level that he can get to. Same with Andrei Svechnikov, who's 25 years old. Still has a level that he can get to elevate his play. It's all about finding the guys that fit well with the team. That's what Eric Tulsky in this front office has done a really good job of doing. By the way, if you missed any of that Eric Tulsky interview that we just had, 4:15, we'll replay it for you guys. In case you missed it, 4:15, Eric Tulsky will have a replay of the interview, the conversation that we just had with the Carolina Hurricanes general manager.
And it'll be available on our YouTube, 99.9 The Fan. We're working on the climb to 18,000 subscribers. Need about 150, 200 more. We're getting real close. So search 99.9 The Fan on YouTube. Subscribe. If you're not in your car, you can watch the live stream of our show as well.
And you can leave thoughts in the comments in the YouTube live chat as well.
The chat is popping today. Lots of people on pins and needles waiting for updates on Nikolai Ehlers and many other things.
Speaking of Nikolai Ehlers, Will Parks actually just said this on our YouTube live chat. If Ehlers chooses the Washington Capitals over the Carolina Hurricanes, he doesn't care about winning. Great point.